We got a great presentation for you today. I'm Max Altschuler, CEO of Sales Hacker. Tweet us using the hashtag #SHWebinar when you have any questions for us during this event. The recording will be posted in the next 48 hours, so you will be able to go back to this and share it with your friends. We have Timo Rein today from Pipedrive, and we're talking about dominate 2017 by owning your wins and losses. So we're going to talk about some actionable tactics and techniques for you to use to understand, go back through, 2016 and kind of audit your deals and understand what you did well on your wins and what you didn't do so well on your losses. And Timo is going to talk you through how his team uses this. I think they're well across 10 million ARR now, doing really well as a early stage startup now going into hyper growth mode. But I'm going to let Timo take it away, CEO of Pipedrive, and he's going to give you some really actionable tactical tips to do this in your own company today. Timo, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad, Max. How are you?
Doing all right. Let's drop some knowledge on them.
All right.
There you go.
First, thank you for inviting to your show again. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can discuss a few things which matter to people in sales and in sales management. And yeah, I wanted to a little bit highlight first a couple of words here in this title. I think the word dominate for me is a first keyword. The question is, do you really want to dominate, and what does it really mean? And by definition, if you go into dictionaries, I think you can get something like that you have a commanding influence on something on sales, then, or you exercise control over something, or in sales that it's sales. Then, for me, it means that you're ambitious, that you think big. That's why you want to dominate. That you're also competitive, at least against your sort of older self, your teammates and what have you. And I also think that if you think about dominating, you also must be thinking about being consistent, not like a one-hit, one day, 1 week, 1 quarter wonder, but like a regular hitter, right? And as I started, out in sales, I didn't have the most dominating thought at all. I had a clear conviction that no one will buy from me, because I didn't think that I'm cut out for sales. And at the same time, I do remember that I badly wanted to beat my teammates. So I was willing to outwork them in any way required. That's something that I remember going through my head. And I saw that, if I stick to what I could control, I ended up being among, top 1% of salespeople in organizations that I worked in. And just wanted to also give a little bit of context to people who don't know. So after being in sales for about 15 years or so, and not finding the tool for sales management like we needed, we decided to create Pipedrive to help people organize their efforts and manage their sales of high-value products and services. And I'm one of the co-founders and also a co-CEO of Pipedrive, and we do serve tens of thousands of small and medium businesses around the world. And my personal mission in all of this is just to help people organize their work and develop the confidence that they will win, which I think is golden in sales. As far as today, the big question that we are starting from is whether you're winning or losing. And there's an interesting term we use, I think, when there are signs that a year, which is 2016 right now, may not end up as well as we planned. I think we urge each other then to save the year, quote unquote. And as a response, salespeople often start talking about big year-end discounts, right? Like, hey, Mr. Prospect, if we can get it wrapped before the year-end, I could be able to work out a really good deal for you, or something you like. But this time, I wanted to focus less on salespeople saving the year, and more on setting your team up to hit the ground running, also yourself up to hit the ground running before the new year begins. So whatever you do right now, the results may come within a few weeks or within months, but the important point is to know if the performance is changing to what you want it to be. And so, nothing may show in results in December, but there's a big difference in confidence and forecasts for next year if you see the performance changes, and that's what we want to talk about. So the first step of getting better, I think, is to know where you are and what has gotten you this far. So the question whether you're winning or whether you're on a losing track in 2016, I think is a starting point. And I want to start with those who are not on the winning track, the team or a person who needs a turnaround. And by the way, this is not a sign of true potential, but it's clearly a sign that you've not been able to put it together in 2016, and that happens to everybody. But the starting point, if you want to improve, like I said before, your future performance, then is to look back at your recent past, the run that led you to this point, and a couple of things that people say, that your past doesn't equal your future, especially if you don't want it to give, if you don't want it, but it gives you the reality, at least, to work with. And I think it was Tony Robbins, maybe Max you know better, but he's had one of the quotes, which I've liked a lot, is that if you want better answers or better results, you need to ask better questions. And so if your team is not able to hit the targets you set for 2016, there are at least two important questions that I think you should ask. Let's start from the first one. I think every team, when things are not coming together, somebody's doing well normally. I'll address the situation when nobody's doing it, but later on. But somebody's doing it. There's a good chance that there's an individual, or maybe even more in your team, who's on track and likely to hit their goals. And if anybody is on track or very close to this, then the question we can ask after that is, moved on, why they are on track. You can ask this and look at the data if you have that. You can also ask this from the person who did it. I think both are important, and then compare to what you think is good, what everybody else is doing. Is it that their approach is different? Is it that their intensity is higher, urgency? I do remember an example when I was losing to my sales manager in sales, and she was the one who was also selling, and I do remember that one of the things I figured out, that I was not as good as her, even though I did everything the way that she did. I think I thought that way, at least. I discovered that during following her, that I wasn't as urgent at all, and that can be one of the things. We'll talk about urgency a little bit more later on. But the other question then is did they just do more work? Because in sales, more work, if you work with more prospects, create more opportunities, you just put yourself in a position to win more. And I have had numbers of teams that I've been in. There's always been somebody who just outworks everybody else, and just that could be one of the things. Maybe it was why they were able to do it because they were after bigger deals. They were able to close bigger deals. I remember also from earlier days in sales that I had a teammate who was always talking about and being very proud about the fact that he closed 50, 60, or 70% of his deals. So he was, I think, also working a bit smarter, but also working hard to pick the right deals. They could be converting better, quicker. Whatever the case is, the next question I think there is, can we just go and replicate that as a team? If somebody else is doing that, can all other people replicate that? And maybe the more important question is, what can everybody else do? And the whole point that I want to make here is that if there's somebody who's able to do it, somebody who's been able to stay on track, then you can learn from this. Why they succeed, what could be done, and the whole idea is to go into actions and you look at it over time, beyond results, because actions can be replicated. People can understand what it is that they do differently when you put it like that. And you need a new focus, obviously, new standard, and that's how you can make a difference. The second question, I think, if you're not hitting it as a team, is that maybe we were at one point. And the question is, when were we able to do it as a team? There's a chance that There was a short period during the year, maybe at the beginning of it, maybe by end of January, maybe by end of Q1 or Q2. Maybe there was just 1 month that we were on a good track. And the following questions will be the same. What did we do that during that period that we maybe did not do other times? And again, looking at data and talking to people, you can get really good answers. Was it more that we were more focused? Were we actually working more? Or maybe we just collaborated and were, just talking to each other more. And for example, in case, let's say that April was a good month, let's say you discover that, depending on the sales cycle, obviously the answer lies that, the answer, to this good month lies probably in earlier times, maybe in January or February, in the work that you put in then. And I do remember, for example, one case where we increased our standards of opportunities, new opportunities that we add every week to work with, and we had a standard that we set, like 5 opportunities a pair of people had to come up with, and every week on Monday we had this sort of almost not like a contest, but we went through them, and we did see an uplift obviously later on in April and May. So again, when we ask these sort of questions, when were we able to do it, we will learn why we performed better and what we could do to also change the habits. And the same example I gave, we did have this standard, with 5 new opportunities per pair of salespeople. We actually failed to keep in focus the very thing after about 3 months, and why? I mean, there was no immediate uplift, so it's easy to also lose your focus doing the right things. Also, one question I think which is really important here, if you're not hitting it, you are part of it. I mean, there's a saying that managers should not take credit when results come in. It's the people that actually do it, but you should definitely own the losses. So that's part of being a manager. So you're either helping a bit or you're blocking a bit. But there's a reason why you're a manager or you're a coach. At least there needs to be someone who has a high standard, or at least help to get the performance up, more consistent, and maybe find that extra motivation when times are tougher. So the point here is to look in the mirror. So what is your role? How do you see it? And did you think you did the job? Anything you did, was there again enough urgency and enough consistency on your part? I gave an example of dropping the ball with this prospects per week standard myself. That's a clear example from a retrospective that I learned later on. Or frequency or quality of updates with the team and one-on-one meetings. So what you pick depends on you, but again, if you find something that you didn't do a good job, it should be part of the routines going forward. Especially important if you want your team to do something differently going forward, that you also express and state what it is that you are going to do differently, to do your part, right? So that's the recap here. So if you're on the losing track, who was able, when we were able, and what you did well and what you failed to do, and great chance you will find answers. Maybe not. Maybe it's a case where nobody hit quota. Team wasn't able to do it at any stage. In that case, there's a need to do a deeper dive. Maybe there are too high goals. Quite often the case, especially when you're not hitting them. But it's also very tempting as an easy way out. So should be careful with that. Also important.
How do you know when to recalibrate on quota and goals, and say maybe lead quality? How do you know when to recalibrate on that, and what's the process around that? Do you guys have something that you do at Pipedrive or have done in the past?
I think reading, reacting probably is easier, because what we're dealing with here is as you know, in sales, it's something that we do as our action, and then result that comes if a prospect decides to buy. So it's some of it's out of our hands. So I think that's why it's maybe not as, I don't think at least that it's a very good scientific process here. But reading and reacting in terms of, looks like we're hitting the quota way too easily. that could be a good moment to sort of maybe raise it so to keep it challenging enough, and at the same time, when we're so far off it that it sort of starts to motivate even, right? Like it's demoralizing. Maybe also a good point, regardless of why, but at least give ourselves a chance that we are, you know, on a road to hit something, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think, you know, looking around, I wouldn't do this as a first thing. That's why we went through the other questions first. But looking at sales materials, product, service, website, marketing, you know, it's tempting to blame conditions and others if you don't hit it. So you can't fool yourself. You need to own your performance, but you also need to know your situation. And maybe you can, especially as a manager, and want to influence that surroundings a bit too. And I think important question here, which I wanted to sort of highlight, especially when we're talking about, you know, being on a losing track, is, you know, sales is an environment where losses are part of success. And the ability to reset quickly is almost like a must, because, you know, emotionally you need to recover from losses, and you need to set your focus on next steps and prospects. And practically, the shorter the turnarounds or sort of rebound times to learn something, the better. So the question is, how quickly can you reset? I think that my personal quickest reset environment has always obviously been door-to-door, but it did also taught me something. Teach me something really well. I gave an example of trying to beat my sales manager, and I wasn't urgent enough. Basically, the story was that I was working like crazy. I got about 17 demos, and everybody was talking about 30 demos a day. And I knew that if I could hit that number, that was the road to really good results. But I was not breaking through. And then I asked that question at the time, you know, and also from my sales manager, and she said, listen, you can follow me. And I did follow her, and I did tell you before, I realized quite quickly that it just wasn't urgent enough. And the whole point here is that you don't have to wait, I think in sales especially, until the end of the month, quarter, year. You can reset quickly. A day can become a data point here. You can also force people, I've done that as well, to reset their pipeline, for example. So instead of keeping the deals in a pipeline for about 6 or 7 months, you can or you can force the deals to be closed after 2 or 3 months, because that's the real cycle, and that can be done as well. So if you want to see the changes in performance quicker, the resets have to be quicker, so that you know, when you think about your days, it's not like it's just not 1/19th of the quarter we don't have to worry about, but it doesn't matter. It's like how many opportunities you create during the day, per one day, how many first calls, discovery meetings, everything starts to come alive, and you can see whether you're on track of progress or not. And these new standards, and I think they have to be made per day and maybe per week, but not per month, especially when you want to see the change, and never per quarter. Resetting, though, is difficult psychologically also. I remember that personally. You're not seeing yourself hitting targets every day because you're going to miss them. And I still, when I think about it, I still think that's a better way of doing sales than, you know, hiding your head in the sand for a quarter, and then realizing that you're nowhere near. So that's what I wanted to mention here. But we also might have a situation where you're winning, and first of, I mean, well done. I mean, it's an amazing feeling, confidence booster for everybody. They also say that we don't learn while we're winning, and I think the point here is to ask questions anyway. Like, good results always include good performance, but they also include, you know, circumstances, seasonality, luck. So it's important to know why you're winning. And the question then, what should we do? What could we do when we're on track? We definitely don't want it to stop, obviously. So first, it's to figure out how we continue to perform. But it requires the same type of effort that got us here, at least. And the second point, I think it's a really good time for a manager to show that you never settle with just good results, that the bar is high also for daily and weekly action from everyone. And one really sort of clouding thing here is that when results are coming in, it may look as if all the right habits are there, but the point is that they are not from everyone, and definitely not under pressure, because if things are good, people have more confidence. It might be a really good time before the end of the year to do a retrospective with the team that a lot of development teams do, and look at, you know, when we won, why, and when we didn't, why, and continue also stressing the importance of building the good habits, finding out, you know, what it is that we did as a group, and what was, you know, everything else that I, you know, listed before. And the whole point is to figure out how everyone can perform better and more consistently, because there are different people in teams. There are, you know, rookies and up-and-coming guys, and there are seasoned people. So there are plenty of things that you can do even when you're winning. And I again I think for managers, turn their face to the mirror is to ask about their own urgency. And I think the reason I repeat urgency is I think it's maybe the most important intangibles in sales that I've seen, because it carries over. It's something that you can't put your finger on, but you can definitely see when it's there. So you can always be there to ask people whether they're following up on their actions, whether they're letting stagnant deals to sit in the pipeline, and that velocity transforms obviously into revenues and profits. And the difference, for example, between, you know, 100K per month or per quarter, I think everybody can do the calculations, massive. But the point here is also that urgency doesn't mean that you will go and wear yourself out. The sales is actually a marathon, so you gotta have the speed that you can go the whole year with, but also having that speed consistently and being a good policeman, I think is a sign of a really good team and an individual. So it doesn't equal speed when we talk about urgency, but one example I can give about here is as a salesperson, you know, everybody knows that, you know, prospects have their own purchasing processes, and I did do something in sales which I figured later on was a really good you know, thing for me, was to enter the lives of prospects way before they kicked off their official purchasing processes. So urgency in that case wasn't so much about the speed, but timing. And when you're in before, you can have conversations which are more informal, maybe. People are not comparing your solutions already against something else, against somebody else's, and you can talk about real needs and problems, and you can sort of make the case about your solution before anything else starts to happen. And I think the second and last question here, if you're winning, is to ask what kept us from doing an even better job. I have to admit, I hate that question every time, you know, I ask this myself or somebody else asks this, because it's relative, and I think we're ruined as human beings because we always can be relative, because it depends on what you compare it against. As soon as somebody does a really good job, there's always somebody who asks, could you have done an even better job, right? But I think that the sales managers have this fate that's on them. So you are the ultimate comparer. Okay, many things could have affected us why we're winning, but at least we can make sure that we're comparing the work that we do against the greatness that we really admire. You know, it could mean that you're hitting the quota, but you're not happy because you're not seeing the performance that you want. And one thing I've seen that great teams and individuals do is that they compare themselves against the greatest, and they rarely achieve everything they're after, but while doing so, they sort of outperform others. And I know there were people in teams when I was able to work and get really good results that they were looking at my performance as something to achieve. At the same time, I was comparing myself to the seasoned people ahead of me, trying to achieve the levels not doable for me yet. And I think that's sort of who you compare against. I think that's at least that has been the best answer for me, or the best place where this answer to this question can come from when somebody asks, like, what can we do to do even a better job? And like I said before, one of my teammates was very proud of hitting this 50, 60, 70% winning ratios. It's so much better than 20%, and it doesn't mean that 70% that you are some kind of sales whisperer or some wizard, but it's you picking the right deals and being determined. So I think that's the question to ask here to complete the set of questions. So what you should do, there are things you can do even when you're winning, and I think urgency is a good intangible keyword there, and figuring out who you compare your performance to can lead to improving performance even when winning. And it's end of November, so we have a year which is closing, and I think a couple of weeks left in sales effort. So the effort has mostly been made. 80 to 90 to 95% of the results maybe they're in. So what can we do, and what we need to recognize? Well, first of all, sales is tough. Whoever's done it, I think, agrees. Losses part of the success. Closing a single deal can take a long time, depending on the cycle. The ultimate feedback, because of that, actually comes and visits us not very often. And confidence, which is the key in sales, can be lost easily because of this hardship. So what to do when you don't get the results that you wanted, and even if you did, I think it's upon the manager to recognize what was done right. I've been in teams where sales managers have organized it perfectly, so they've set metrics, several of them, actionable metrics, where they can recognize the efforts of people who weren't able to hit the results, but they were able to be either the people who came up always as creating most opportunities. Maybe weren't as best at converting, but they were always creating these opportunities. And also people who were able to convert like crazy. And that's how you can recognize the important things that you want people to focus on and do. And that's, I think, the job that manager obviously has, if not before, then definitely before the year ends. So the different strengths are brought to the surface, and people can feel good even when they are not hitting the results, because the habit of knowing, and I think it's a habit of knowing that I'm doing the right things, it will increase the confidence. It will increase the confidence of people even when the results are not happening. And a good cycle here is that when you have more confidence, it helps you get results quicker. So that's either a good cycle or a vicious cycle, depends on whether you have it going for you. So recognizing effort before the year ends, and when looking into 2017 now, wanted to sort of remind us before it happens, one very potentially depressing fact that I know from my own experience and from reading about others, is that about less than 10% of New Year's resolutions will get fulfilled. So depressing, I think it is, because I think most people, when they give themselves these promises and set the resolutions, they don't want to be that 1 out of 10 person who doesn't do it. But it happens that most of us don't. So the question for me has always been, do people change? I actually have to say I don't think they do. Can they improve? I think people can improve, but the question is, in terms of what? In terms of character, I take the position that character is quite formed by the time we are out of schools and already trying to do the job. But in terms of habit, there's a massive opportunity for everybody. That's where we can improve a lot. Then when you think about changing your own habits, you also know that it's a very tough thing to do, because I've been trying to put myself through some kind of physical activity all the time that I've been doing some kind of office work, either running or going to swim. And there's always a counter force when you try to change the habit. And trying to go for a run, you can always have this counter force of, I want to spend some time to relax right now. It's just been a very difficult day. I just want to relax on a couch. And it's an amazing thing, entertainment coming from TV or friends just ask you out. And you have this counter force all the time, even though you promised that you're going to be doing running this year, 2017, ahead of us. You see how you can get it's almost like you're trying to steer the car out of deep, deep ruts. And the only way that I found that people can do it is that you have to attack that and have to fight that counterforce at least 30 days in a row, and then check whether you are sort of out of the ruts and whether you have a little bit of automation already. But it is every day, single day and every day. And then there's an important question to ask when you, for example, month 2 in, and you see that you are successfully now doing something that you weren't doing before, either in sales or in personal life, is that, do you like this new life now? And it's a very important question, because you will probably understand why you wanted it. You might realize that you actually didn't, which might be the case, but you might realize that you really like it. And then the question is, you really like it, and you need to like it forever. And that's the point of changing the habits. And I think that's why habits are really, really difficult to change. We don't realize that we either can change them forever or not at all. So that's why I think in sales, a strong individual, why going into another year or another period is really necessary in order to get good results, because the only way that we can really improve is by changing some of the habits that we have. And as a team leader, you have a team of people who already have a lot of habits. Any new standard, requires you to focus on what are the counter forces and then, overcome them. But that's, pretty much what we wanted to cover.
So I have some questions for you on that. So, we're talking about auditing kind of what you've been doing in your sales process, whether you're a rep or a manager or whatnot. Are you saying to do this just at the end of the year around this time, or is this something that you're consistently doing? Are you doing it quarterly, semi-annually? What does that look like?
And when you, Max, when you ask about to do this, then you have.
So you're auditing, you're auditing your habits, you're analyzing
right.
your wins and losses. So all these different things are things that you have to sit back on and reflect on. So how often are you doing that? If you're a rep or if you're a manager?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We also touched a little bit of, the resetting frequency, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that we get caught in the action, and I think it's a good thing in sales, because it's all about momentum and confidence builds up that way. So I do think that in honesty, sometimes we just don't have time to even as managers to sort of take a look at things how they are. We just want to reinforce of what's going on and just make sure that we keep going. But I do think at least, the end of the year, towards the end of the year is a good sort of a psychological moment, because people kind of live their lives that way themselves personally as well. It's like, was it a good year? I hope the next one will be better, all these sort of things. So at least, before the end of the year, if you can do it more frequently, I think you will be better off. Having these sort of retrospectives, like too often, I mean, like once a week, I don't think it's a sort of good time to spend like that. But I know people who do it every quarter. Some people have the quick retrospective like that every month with the team. As a manager, I think in a way you also do it every day, because you look at how things are going and how the team is performing. But yeah, I think that I don't want to set these sights too high. Having a proper analysis of how you're doing against the long-term result goals, the best way to do it is that when this long-term period is about to wrap up, or we are in the middle, like a half-year point. So maybe that's a sort of like an indication.
Okay, great. And so when you talk about these habits, do you have a a list of bad habits to break? Do you guys have any examples on
In
habits?
sales?
Yeah, exactly.
I think people know them. Everybody in a way knows them, but we just sometimes hiding these habits from being publicly known. But I think everybody has them.
Yeah.
Starting from the fact that I brought this example before. While trying to create the habit of coming up with certain number of new prospects every week that we can look at, we can add to the pipeline. That habit just, it didn't form in a team the way that I thought it would, because as much as we try to sort of form it, if we didn't push it, it just vanished, basically, because it's a tough thing to do. You always, in a way, think that all the inbound leads are somewhat better, and then you have so many things to do with existing customers and all these sort of things.
Yeah.
All the tough things, I think, could be listed as bad habits. That's one at least, but there are more.
Okay. I think some people here want to know what technology are you using to track this besides Pipedrive? Are there other pieces of technology that you use on top of Pipedrive for this?
For tracking or for looking into metrics?
Yeah, for looking at the metrics and analyzing, wins, losses, and deals for the year, things like that, engagement levels.
Yeah, when we look at the ways that you can sell to high value items, and you have long sales cycles, I think you can get a lot of metrics out from Pipedrive when you look at this, either from your pipeline metrics or breaking it down by people. We in a way, unfortunately, to have a sales model personally where we have a very transactional model, so that we can't fully use Pipedrive for all of our customers and then the way we sell. So it has to be much more automated, and we do use a large number of different tools to keep on track, having built also our own data warehouse to automate things. But other than this, I think the point I want to make here is that whatever the tool that you're using, I'm urging people to look at, look beyond the results that come in. Results, most tools, whatever you use, they give you the sales results, like you have sales completed and revenue made, but the point is, one way or the other, to break into this layer which involves actions that people do on a daily basis and a weekly basis. And even in very sort of established companies, I've seen that sometimes sales managers go an extra mile to just take out their own Excel or whatever the spreadsheet and work with some of the data in pivot tables to make sure that they can get into these action results, even if they're the sales management tool doesn't help them fully into this. But the point I want to make here is just whatever the tool helps you understand how people really work in sales during the day and during the week, that is going to be important here.
Excellent. And you want to show us, the ebook that people can learn more from?
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up this with where you can get more advice on how to work in sales, and how you can get this, for example, your own action-based selling running in your team. We have a Sales Pipeline Academy, which we have published, so you can go into our blog and you can learn more about it. If you want to reach me personally, I think I don't have a lot of availability, but LinkedIn is probably the best way to go. And if you want to organize your work in sales and manage your pipeline better and close better, definitely suggest to give Pipedrive a spin.
Yeah, definitely reach out to Timo if you have any other deeper questions. He's raised some money for his company. They're doing very well. He's chock full of knowledge that I'm sure will be valuable to everyone in here. The recording will be posted in the next 48 hours. Timo, thank you so much for taking us through that. And any other questions that we see come in through Twitter, we'll send your way, or we'll do our best to answer them. But thanks a lot, Timo, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you, Max, and wish everybody a really good end to this year, and also very good 2017 ahead.
Definitely. Thank you.